Hey guys, Jonathan from Mr. Cavaliere here. Today I'm going to talk about one of the most important things when you're buying a suit or when you're buying a sports jacket or casual jacket, let's say. And that's going to be the lapel. So the lapel, I'm just going to show you on this mannequin here, but the lapel is basically this point to this point, right? So that basically that collar, I would say, or this roll of fabric is your lapel. Right? So some things to think about when we're talking about lapels is obviously the size of it, where it kind of sits in place of on the actual chest, and different things we can kind of go about manipulating to kind of like accentuate different things. So in terms of structure, this is actually classified as the collar, and this is the gorge line. So where the lapel and the collar meet, right? So if you look at this little stitching here, that's where kind of the lapel ends. Right, so based on where this gorge line is situated, this can change the way the lapel is actually viewed on the actual person who's wearing it. So the lower we put this gorge line, the more we're accentuating a chest, right? So as this moves down, the more the actual lapel also comes down and kind of accentuates different things, right? So the more we move this down, the more we accentuate a chest. The more we move this up, the more we're kind of accentuating someone's length or giving them a little bit more like visual length, right? A lot of things in tailoring is a lot about manipulation of the body, right? So changing different things, you know, visually kind of giving someone the presence or like the look of something that maybe they aren't or want to look like. And then sometimes we're just kind of complimenting what they already have, right? So that's exactly what I think about when I'm making a custom jacket for a client is like, how do we highlight kind of your best features? All right, getting into the different styles of lapels here. This is a notch lapel. And basically what that means is, see this little cutout here, right? It almost looks like a fish mouth. This is a notch, right? So this can be manipulated in a couple different ways, right? It can be made smaller. It can be made slightly wider, right? But this is a notch, right? This lapel style you're gonna find almost on majority of suits that you kind of get off the rack, but also suits that are kind of like in between, right? They're not super formal, they're not super dressy, they're kind of the perfect in-between lapel style. So that's the notch. Going into the shawl, this is kind of the opposite end of the spectrum. So this is as formal as you can get in terms of a lapel. Right? One thing that you'll notice on the actual shawl is there isn't a gorge line, right? We don't have a gorge line. We don't have any sort of back collar to lapel differentiation, right? So the actual collar and lapel are all made in one exact piece. The only seam is actually in the back of the jacket. The main thing about a shawl, the thing we can manipulate is obviously the size, but we can also manipulate the actual belly of the lapel, which is this piece right here, where it kind of rounds towards the button, right? So this is classified as a large belly lapel because it kind of like rounds out. We can also make this a little bit skinnier as it goes down, right? So we can make this lapel kind of cut in a little bit and then go towards the button, right? Things to think about here, this is more of a traditional silhouette with this wide belly. What you'll find now, especially with like James Bond or more modern times in terms of shawls, is you'll kind of get almost that like slightly more skinnier, a little bit more narrow bellying of the shawl, let's say. That being said, in terms of what you can wear a shawl for, it's mostly made for formal occasions, right? That's the reason we styled this mannequin with a bow tie and a white shirt. So you'll find it in white jackets, you'll find it on tuxedos. We can also line this lapel in silk, right? So that's another thing to take into account. But it's made for, you know, black tie, formal occasions, potentially your wedding day, you can wear something like this. This is actually the jacket I wore on my wedding day. So shawl, whenever you think shawl, think really, really formal, really dressy. And then last but not least is the lapel that I'm actually wearing. So this is a peak lapel, right? So if you look at the lapel, similar to our notch, it has the back collar, it has the gorge line, but as opposed to it being a notch, as opposed to just having this little cutout, this actually has like a point, right? So it's got this almost little mountain point going on, right? When you think peak, the word peak, right? Think like mountain peak, notch, little notched out lapel, right? Similar things apply here, right? The way we can kind of go about manipulating where the gorge line and the collar meet, or the gorge line lapel, the way we kind of position that can change different things. But the main thing about a peak versus a notch is there's a lot more presence here, right? The guy who wears a peak lapel wants a bit of presence in his shoulders, wants to look a little bit more formal or a little bit dressier, and wants to have a bit more of, just wants to accentuate kind of like his stature or his physique, right? So it's not for the faint of heart, but it is a great lapel. This lapel can kind of go either or, right? It is obviously a little bit dressier, right? It's slightly more formal just because of the shape of it, right? So you can do, you know, a black tie, you could do a tuxedo in a peak lapel. That being said, it just, you know, some guys will do it as a classic suit, and it kind of has a lot of presence as well. And it just, you know, it's a great lapel if you want to just, you know, look a little bit like stronger and leaner, let's say, or stronger and more masculine, right? Make a bit more of a presence when you enter a room, right? So these are the lapels that you're going to find in 99% of cases, right? Obviously, size can change, you know, where this sits can change. And, you know, these are the lapels that we've used for, you know, hundreds and hundreds of years, right? With very little variation, right? So I hope that was a quick rundown on I hope that helps you kind of like, you know, differentiate lapel styles and, you know, what you potentially may like and kind of like how to go about placing them. But I think, you know, if you're looking for a suit specifically that can kind of go both ways, start with a notch. If you're looking for something a little bit different with a bit more presence, go with a peak. And if you want to do something that's a bit dressier, a bit more formal, and slightly different than the notch and the peak, then I would say definitely go with the shawl. Okay, guys, I hope this helps. If you have any questions for me, send me a message and we'll cover it in our next video. Thanks for watching.